Usually here on Let's Talk Assassin's Creed, we do lightly scripted podcast episodes, but as I completed this run just yesterday and I'm still buzzing about it, I wanted to document my thoughts. So this whole video essay style is new to me. Now before we get into it, big spoiler warning, I am going to be discussing some missions and some story points. If you haven't finished Assassin's Creed Mirage, do not watch this video. Let's get into it. After completing Nier Automata last week, a game that will stand out as one of my gaming landmarks, I was feeling a bit meh about what to play next. I haven't actually played an Assassin's Creed game since Mirage was released last October, played it through twice back then, once on the PlayStation, once on PC, and I just felt that I needed to get back to Assassin's Creed. I loaded up Mirage and thought about starting a new game plus, and then I saw it in the menu, full synchronization mode, aka Permadeath. This mode was added to the game a few months after release and I hadn't really engaged with it until now. And as I looked at this in the menu, I thought, why not? Now, as Captain Marco Ramius says in The Hunt for Red October, when Cortez reached the New World, he burned his ships. As a result, his men were well motivated. So in this spirit, I deleted all of my manual saves and all of my auto saves, and I started a permadeath run. Now, side note here, after I completed my run, I learned that you can start one as a new game plus, but I didn't do enough research, and I kind of set myself the hardest possible challenge by doing one of these runs as a new save game. I'm going to summarize my experience in this way. Assassin's Creed Mirage full synchronization mode forced me to roleplay as an assassin in a way that no other Assassin's Creed game has before. I had to think, I had to plan, I had to use the full set of the game's systems and tools, and it was fantastic. Making this statement could be a little bit divisive, and let me explain why. People play Assassin's Creed games for all sorts of reasons: the big beautiful open worlds, the sci-fi storyline, the historical tourism aspect. They enjoy the mixture of cool combat styles and gameplay that lets them play how they want. But if you play Assassin's Creed games because you like to deeply roleplay as an assassin and everything that word means, try this mode. Okay, let's address probably the first question that I think you're going to ask. Was it hard? And my honest answer is not really. It is a hard question to answer because it depends how you grade your own skill level. I grade my own skill level as low to medium at best. I don't have super fast reactions. I don't generally invest huge numbers of hours into mastering most of the games that I play. Exceptions would be AC Odyssey, AC Unity and the Horizon games. I mostly play games to relax and to escape. The other point I'll add here is this game gives you a lot of tools, a lot of resources and a lot of options. It's rare that you'll find yourself in a situation in this game where there is no way out. And again, I think that makes this actually a relatively easy challenge. So with all that said, for a low to medium skill player, how was the experience? Honestly, I really enjoyed it. When you start a permadeath run, you cannot reload. You cannot make manual saves. The buttons in the menu are actually greyed out. The game takes regular checkpoint saves anyway. When I needed to stop, I made sure to fast travel back to a bureau to force an autosave. I also quite like that from a role-playing point of view, Basim returning to a safe haven between missions. My runtime was 19 hours, but doing a permadeath from New Game Plus, it would likely be less than 10 hours. And I think even with a new game, a sub 10 hour run would be possible. I completed probably about 50% of the side content. I specifically targeted the contracts that award skill points, and I got most of the books as well because you get a skill point for each book that you collect. I did not do the escort missions, partly because I don't enjoy this mission type anyway. That's not just in Mirage, that's in other Assassin's Creed games as well, but also because I felt the risk of failure was much higher. We would likely enter open conflict in front of civilians. Now, the conflict itself is a risk, but entering conflict in front of civilians would increase my notoriety, then bringing more guards, more attention and more risk. Now, had I done a New Game Plus option, I could have skipped the tutorial missions in Anbar and the tutorial segments in Alamut, but I deleted my save game, so I didn't have that option. I also wanted to experience that part of the story, so again, that probably added several hours to my runtime. Now, I also inflated my runtime for 2 additional reasons. I spent a lot of time exploring because I'd forgotten just how damn beautiful this city and this world are, and also because I kept pissing around in photo mode taking pictures. As I said, I think a normal run would probably be about 10 hours. How long to beat says it's 29 hours for 100%. Based on this, if you were taking a slightly low risk approach to 100% run in permadeath mode, it might take a little bit longer, 32, 34 hours. Again, if you're doing New Game Plus, it would be shorter. As I said in my opening, playing this game in this mode forced me to roleplay as an assassin in a way that no other Assassin's Creed game has before. It forced me to engage with all of the game systems in a way that I don't usually, certainly not to the same depth. In my normal playthroughs, I'd rarely use the Hidma tokens, I didn't use crowd blending that often, and when I was detected, I tended to prefer to fight it out as a personal challenge, but also kind of role-playing as the Brotherhood runs from no man. But not this time. If I was detected, I needed to break contact, break line of sight and run, drop smoke and run and hide and come back. And I found that to be lowest risk, and also satisfying in its own way. Each assassination mission, I tried to use every trick and tool the game offered. Tokens, blending, hiding spots, very long range throwing knives, assassin focus. I paid closest attention to the notoriety meter. I did not want to attract the attention of the Shakiria, so my goal throughout the playthrough was to keep my notoriety down to 0 if possible. I did mess up a few times, killing guards and targets in front of civilians, which raised my notoriety. As soon as that happened, my top priority was to find the posters and tear them down and get back into a safe state. It was very risky at certain times, which I'll come to. I selected my tools and upgrades thoughtfully. The game gives us throwing knives and smoke bombs as part of the main story, and the remainder are unlockable. For the final few assassinations, I had unlocked all of the tools, but I think throwing knives and smoke bombs are enough to complete this run relatively comfortably. For the throwing knives, my main goal was to unlock knife recovery as soon as possible to ensure that I had a constant supply of this ranged weapon, and I also took the upgrade that extends the throwing range of the knives. For smoke bombs, I took the upgrade that extends smoke duration, and once I'd upgraded that tool to level 3, I took the mind wipe ability to assist with breaking chases. I actually rarely used smoke at range. I tended more to drop it to the ground below me before jumping or air assassinating targets, also dropping it at my feet as a chase breaker. The other tool I will call out is Sleep Dart. I didn't use it very often in my first runs through the game, but I used it quite often in this permadeath run. They were very useful for dealing with groups of guards. For example, in a group of 3 or 4, I could Sleep Dart 1 or 2, then perform a double assassination, and then assassinate the guards that were sleeping. You can also use Sleep Dart as a distraction technique, so if there's a pair of guards, you can put a guard to sleep, another will go and investigate, and then you've got a break in the guard pattern that you can move through. I used Assassin Focus extensively, unlocking it fully with 5 chunks, and I tried to use it strategically. I would pick off lone guards to charge up my focus meter, and then I would deploy Assassin Focus at points when I had no other option. Generally, I used it for larger groups of guards, but I also used it occasionally as a movement system to cross gaps or climb walls that otherwise would leave me exposed or visible. Again, feeding into that point that it's best not to be detected at all. I used parkour a lot, but I kept it simple, generally just moving across rooftops in straight lines, heading into targets and leaving targets looking for hiding spots. I haven't played Mirage since the post-release parkour update, and my observation, which I cannot support with data, is that parkour now is a bit flashier with its longer side and back ejects, but maybe a little less reliable. I felt Basim wouldn't always land on surfaces I aimed at, and he would stick more often to small surfaces. I definitely observed more parkour fuck-ups than usual. That might be down to a lack of button discipline caused by me panicking. So I kept fancy parkour down to a minimum, also because one of my biggest worries was dying stupidly by falling off of a surface. Leaps of faith off of sync points were always nerve-wracking moments, but I felt I had to include them in my run because this is an iconic part of the franchise. If you were to do your own run, you could skip this entirely. I don't add these comments as criticism of the dev team. They inherited the worst parkour system in the series, and they built something that is generally enjoyable to use, and more specifically through their amazing world design and level design, they built a cityscape designed to match the parkour moveset. The tensest moments for me were the assassination mission where we target the governor in the Shurta headquarters. After speaking to the governor, he lets you escape, but he sets the notoriety to the top level immediately, and there is a Shakiria boss that chases you relentlessly. Running from that boss, which I did not want to fight because I knew I wouldn't have the skill to beat him, was tense. I ran, broke contact, he pursued me, I ran, broke contact, eventually hiding in a bush between some houses. He pursued me and was waiting for a long time, and sneaking out of that bush to start to tear down the posters whilst the crowd are pointing at me, he's here, was the most tense moment of the entire game. I was able to pull down one poster, bring my notoriety level down, and then he broke his chase, and I could watch him walking through the crowds back to his start point, and I continued to pull down posters until I was safe. That was probably 10 minutes of the tensest part of the entire run. The final moment that was tense for me was fighting Roshan in the closing fight. It's not a difficult fight. Roshan has a fairly limited set of moves. They are well telegraphed. It was tense for me because throughout this run I hadn't been practicing melee combat. My muscle memory from the previous playthroughs was rusty. My timing isn't great anyway. So coming into that fight I was very, very nervous. I did have certain upgrades that I picked to try and help me. So I picked the sword that gives you extra damage as your health falls below 0. I picked a dagger that gives you a little bit of a melee combat bonus as well. So what are you rewarded with when you complete this? You get Ubisoft challenge points and XP. You get a special skull talisman, which looks great. You get a new outfit, you get new dye colours, and you get epic bragging rights. Maybe because I came to Assassin's Creed through the newer games, I've always treated these worlds as zones to move through rather than environments to really engage with. This run in this mode completely changed my approach and completely changed my opinion of how much detail there is in these games. Was it worth it? Oh hell yes, and I recommend every Assassin's Creed player gives this a try.